NTV Wild Talk in partnership with the Kenya Wildlife Service and Wildlife Direct.
Hello and welcome to NTV Wild Talk with me, Smriti Vidyarthi, coming to you from the National Museum of Kenya. My guest today is Jim Yong. Now you may know of him as the man who walks for elephants, because that's literally what he does. Jim has just completed a 3,200-kilometer walk across East Africa, and he's done it for elephants to raise awareness and campaign for them. More on that in just a moment, but first, meet Jim. This is Jim Yong on the final stretch of his East Africa walk. Born in 1976, 40-year-old Jim Yong hails from Murang'a County, where he spent most of his life as a young man. It was after he worked at the Kenya Wildlife Service and the African Conservation Research Centre as a research scientist that he decided he would embark on a walk to raise awareness on the plight of elephants.
Jim has a very important message to convey to the world, and that is that we are losing 35,000 elephants a year here in Africa. And we cannot sustain that. We are going to actually preside over the extinction of our elephants. Jim has chosen a very unique style of doing this, and this is by walking and talking. So when he walks several thousands of kilometers actually. But along the way, he stops and talks to communities, he goes to schools and conveys that message, and that has been very powerful.
Jim has walked in Kenya, in the USA and across Tanzania and Uganda. This man has literally been walking the talk, but it's been no easy task. Well, Jim Yong now joins me on the show. Jim, welcome to NTV Wild Talk. Pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you very much, Smriti.
First, I'll start by saying Karibu Nyumbani and congratulations. You have just finished a 3,200-kilometer walk across East Africa, spanning 126 days. How are you feeling?
I was looking forward to finish the walk. The issue was not finishing the walk, but also meeting the people that I had missed for some time. Since the walk, I have had a terrible time, headache, fatigue, because I think the reality dawned on me. It would happen anytime after the walk. I would have like 1 week of body rejecting many things, from sleeping, I'm not sleeping well, I'm not tired, I'm just mentally fatigued, and having headache because I used to drink like about maybe 6-7 bottles of water. But now I'm only maybe drinking like 1 bottle because my body doesn't demand too much water. But I guess in a few days I'll be well.
You made the decision to raise awareness for elephants a long time ago.
Yeah.
What was the moment that made you realize I need to start raising awareness about elephants? Did you see a dead elephant, or what was it that captured your attention?
Between 2005, when I was working for the cross-border elephant program, the African Conservation Center, I was very much involved with the African database and supporting the African database with data from African countries. And I looked at the trend of elephant poaching in Africa. And 2 countries really, I was monitoring them keenly. This is Eritrea and Chad. And 2011, we saw what happened in Eritrea, whereby they're talking of no elephants at all. And when I was coming to resign in 2012, I realized where I was working, it was too small for me. And I felt that I needed to do something, because I was looking at the statistics that were coming from KWS and also from Traffic and Mike. About 78% of the poaching incidences were happening outside the park. That means this is where people live with the elephants. And I was looking at all the approaches that several organizations were doing, were indoors meeting, workshops, but there was no one who was reaching out to these communities who are involved in poaching, involved in killing elephants, by what they hear. And so I decided to resign. It was very difficult. I remember my chairman by then, David Weston, came to my desk and like, I've heard you've resigned. Why, how, and what next? And I remember even during the setting of party, he said, I want to be part of what you're doing. I personally didn't know what I was doing.
Really?
But later on, when I did my first walk in Mombasa to Nairobi, the ignorance of the people along the way shaped me, and I didn't know that I'll continue walking.
So really it was these grim statistics of the dropping number of elephants across Africa, across the world, that grabbed your attention. But then you decided, hey, I'm going to raise awareness, but you chose a very unique way of doing this. You decided that you were going to walk. Why walk?
To be sincere, I didn't have money, I didn't have a vehicle, but I had knowledge which I thought I would take it back. My first 2 days, I was walking in these safari boots.
Really?
I was walking in a trouser, but I realized it was too hot for me. I need to look for a short. I remember me buying a short in Mariakani and buying these rubber shoes, and they give me hell in earth until when I realized that I need proper walking shoe. So I was walking information, but I was not prepared to have proper walking shoe, even to have a hat to protect my face, to even have sunscreen to have to block my skin.
You probably underestimated how difficult it would actually be.
Me, I think I really needed to walk and talk to people. And I remember reaching to Voi, because I would pose to so many centers, those areas of Sambu or down there to before Mariakani, and I would talk to people. And it was just the time when there was election. I remember in Maungu, I posed like a buyer of just wanted to understand this business. And I actually got some ivory from the people in Mariakani, whereby later on I went to the KWS and we both, I think those guys were arrested. And I wanted to understand this business well. So there's so many things that I learned from the point whereby when I arrived in Voi, the deputy county commissioner there, we paid a courtesy call to him, and he told me, young man, you are wasting your time.
Really?
I had open shoes and the blisters were fresh. And he wasn't sure whether I would finish the walk in Nairobi. And he was like, we have too many elephants in Savo. And I had KWS with me. And we don't even know what to do. So, and I asked him, how many elephants do you think we have? He said we have 1 million elephants in Savo.
God.
He was speaking from his heart. He didn't know. Later on, I think last year when I walked there, he's still there. He actually said, for sure I didn't know. I now know how many elephants. By then we had 12,000 elephants. And he wished me well. I remember him flagging me off. And these other walks, he kept on checking on me. That means there are many, many people. And that was one government officer who didn't have information of what we have.
Of course, so there was, you got a sense perhaps of ignorance. People didn't really know the seriousness of what was happening to our elephants. That was the first walk, and you've done quite a few walks since then. But let's just take our viewers now to this massive big walk that you've just completed. 3,200 kilometers across East Africa. That's through Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania. Why did you decide to walk across East Africa?
I had worked in Tanzania, and looking again at Tanzania is the second country with the highest population of elephants from Botswana. Then through the CITES, we are the source of ivory, according to the CITES. And I knew the CITES was sitting this year.
And that is the Convention on International Trade of Endangered Species.
So I felt, as one recommendation that was done in the COP16 was to try and bring these three countries together and identify a common way of addressing poaching. So I decided, let me test waters, let me just walk. And on the 4th of June, I set to walk from Nairobi to Dar es Salaam, Morogoro, all the way to Fort Portal in Uganda, to Entebbe, Busia, back to Nairobi. And it was very difficult.
Right. Jim, before we get into the details about the actual walk itself, no doubt this walk took a lot of preparation. Based on what you've learned from the first walk, how did you then prepare for this walk when it comes to your mental state, your physical state, and financially as well?
Yeah. One, I have realized this military that I have not been understood. This is one walk that is different from other walks. This is not a walk of raising money. And we've had so many walks where people are raising money. This is a walk raising awareness, but it requires money. So what I did from December, I took time to try to plan. One, identifying some people in Tanzania, some people in Uganda, who would help me with the route, who would help me to mobilize other like-minded institutions. Back home here, I've been working closely with the Office of the First Lady, been working closely with the Office of the Professor Judy, the Minister of the Environment, also Kenya Wildlife Service. But I had a hinge because many people thought that I'm raising funds. This was my 10th edition work. I raise awareness. So I was spending more time in Tanzania, spending more time in Uganda, to try and identify the route. When I'll be walking from point A to point B, where will I sleep? Who will be involved? Yeah. And then, of course, bringing the government. And I must appreciate the Minister of Interior by introducing me to Tanzania, because it falls under the security. And I had 4 Kenyans, and then the Uganda, and the ministers of the 3 countries. They were so supportive by bringing security on board.
Jim, once you had that, how did you prepare for this walk mentally? Because the other walks you've done have certainly not been this long.
One, I would say, anytime I'm starting in a walk, I am starting the walk when I'm so tired.
Why?
Because I've been planning. The third day when I'm doing the walk, that's when I begin getting some reliever, because walking is very easy. I can walk 100 kilometers in a day.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember I did 57 kilometers from Manyani to Mutito a day. Walking is easy, but putting things to praise is what bog me down.
Jim, what about your physical state? How did you prepare physically? Because you say that walking is easy and that you can walk, but still you must have had to prepare.
Absolutely no. I have never trained to walk.
Really?
I have never go to the field, run or go to gym. I've never done that. What happened after my second walk in Masai Mara, when I went to the United States, I got a very nice lady, 2 ladies in the US who have been supporting me with the walking shoes. Oh. And I realized if you have a walking shoes, then I got Brista's Compete from Manyago Safaris, and they have supplied me. I have no problem. I only manage a couple of things. Headaches because of water, dehydration, and also planning ahead of time. Then there's too much of engagement. I don't eat lunch, because where do you eat lunch? Yeah. Where? When? I would just drink water, and issues to do with pollution. We are used to this by the roadside. 3,200
kilometers. It's a heck of a long walk. What were some of the major challenges? What were some of the highs and the lows that you went through? I mean, it must have been hot.
The challenges here, Smriti, would start from one. I didn't have a vehicle. So I'm relying on people to give me vehicle. So I would look for, when I'm walking, I have vehicle for 5 days. I must begin thinking about the next 5 days, where will I get vehicle. At times I used even to hire matatus to carry the public address system and carry us. And the other thing was, it was too hot. Some areas I remember, from Korogwe down to Tanga to Bagamoyo, Dar es Salaam, Charize, it was very hot. And I don't like using the sunblock.
Oh, really?
I don't like it. I want to be African. And
surely you got burned.
Yeah. Apparently, I used just to use the milking.
Yeah. Normal milk body lotion.
Yeah, that's what I used to use. And but the sun was too hot. You can imagine you're drinking water, you empty everything. I would 3 days without going for short call.
Wow.
I had to call my doctor. It had happened one day. He told me, no, your system is okay. The pollution. the Tanzania and Uganda, they use old vehicles for the 126 days, maybe 10 days without headache. Even now I have a mild headache.
Wow.
And this is because of pollution. The other thing was the terrain. Going down, I injured my ankle so many times because I'm braking too much. I would see my people would have even blisters, because we are not blisters, muscle pull, because we are braking down. But going up hills, that was my favorite, because I'm using energy, but I'm braking too much.
Yeah.
Then the dust. Some roads, like I remember from Dodoma to Babati, Mtoambu, Serengeti, the road was dusty. And we chose that route because that's where there are elephants.
Yeah.
That's where there are people. Rains. We were rained on in Bukoba.
Really?
And we were camping by the beach. So our tents were broken. Our food was mixed up, from sugar to tea leaves to rice, everything.
No, because of the rain.
The rains, they were putting them in the
yeah.
tent. But we enjoyed. I remember we woke up at 3 a.m. and because I was given a room, everybody came in my room and we all slept there. And then it started linking, and it was part of the thing. Then come to Uganda, things were somehow different. Again, the rain. In Tanzania it was raining during the night, but Uganda and also in Kakamega it was raining during the daytime. And when it rains, we have public address, we have to cover that. Yeah. Do we stop? We have to continue walking, because ahead there are people waiting for us. So we would try and adjust.
So you had to really have a very positive mental state to push on through this tough time.
Yeah.
But those were some of the major challenges. What were some of the highs and the positives that came out of this walk?
There are a couple of them. I remember when we were in Arusha, just before reaching to Moshi, one day we decided to go. I was so stressed. Yeah. I told my people, I think I feel like dancing today. Yeah. And we went for this Tarabu music. Yeah. I told you I danced.
Really?
But the following day, my body was aching. And I decided I will never go for, and it was not really, Tarabu is not dancing, it's just shaking bodies and all these things. Yeah. But it was fun because I really wanted to understand the cultures and all these things.
So you made the most of some of the situations. You had a good time as well. Yeah. What about security though? You did have some KWS security guards with you, but how much of a challenge was security to you?
The KWS were not armed, but they could advise on issues on security. And then we didn't have like walking with the police like here all the way, but we had. And there are issues that came about. One, the issue of traffic. One of the person who was working with me would manage the traffic. He was working wearing a reflector jacket. And when we reached to Babati, I had a very bad incident there on security. I had done a big meeting in Babati with a member of parliament. And that's where we have so many poaching in Taragire and Manyara. And that evening, I was given a room that time. All of us were in a good rooms, apart from tent. Around 3 a.m., I was woken up by commotions. And I found people were touching me. They had removed the window pails and they were just checking, And the next thing is that I was told someone was already like halfway inside through the window. Really? And they told me to cooperate in Swahili, toa ushirikiano. And I panicked. And the next thing is that they had to come into the room. I could manage to see 4 of them who were armed. And then I had to do whatever they wanted. They asked me for money, which they found some money on my back. And then they were taking my clothes literally one by one. So they took away some money and my phone. God, so, and they injured my finger here. This was because one of the window pane was broken by the door. So I was trying, after they left, I panicked because in my thinking, coming from a country where there is bomb and all these things, I thought maybe they could have left something there
Yes,
that would
of
blow
course.
over.
So really a traumatic experience, but Jim, that didn't stop you. You kept walking and you kept informing communities. We've got to take a quick break here on NTV Wild Talk. When we come back, my conversation with Jim continues. We learn more about who he spoke to, what he told the populations there about elephants, and what impact this long, arduous walk is having on elephant population. So, Jim, you walked across East Africa, but who exactly were you talking to on your journey? Where did these people come from? And really, what were you saying to them?
Walking is walking, there is physical walking on the road, and then there is planning. So I had planned ahead with people, and then the county commissioners who would help me to identify maybe the local chiefs along the way. And then when we reach Tanzania, I would have a meeting with the county or the regional commissioner or the DCs, and then along the road where we are passing, people are informed about us passing there. And one of the vehicles had the loudspeaker. So we would do impromptu meetings in those big centers. We would also do the detour meetings, like we did one in Arusha National Park, those areas that are West Kilimanjaro, where people are fighting elephants. And also where people are facing a lot of challenges with crop raiding cases on their farms. Human-wildlife conflict. Yeah. I would also spend the time talking to the head of security in a district, all of them from the DC, including the local chiefs. They would be mobilized to come, including the immigration officer, because Tanzania, they have immigration officer every district. So I would have a time to talk to them. But majorly, when we are walking, someone is in the car, introducing to any road and people who are passing, even people in their vehicles, what is happening, where we have begun the walk, where we are headed. And then in those impromptu meetings, people would begin asking questions, which you would begin asking them questions.
Right, and what was it that you were then telling these people? How were you educating them about the plight of elephants?
One, I'm bringing knowledge here, which I learned with my Kenyans here. Is the same thing in Tanzania and Uganda. People have no idea why me as me. I like the way they say mimi kama mimi. Why I should be concerned about the wildlife. Yeah. And I'm bringing this that, do you know we are losing our elephants? Do you know how many elephants we have? Like Tanzania, 3 years ago they had 140,000 elephants. Yeah. And now we are talking about 43,000 elephants. Shocking. And I have the facts about every park. So if I'm walking, for instance, in Taragire, I would begin by telling them, do you know here in Taragire, this is what we have? We used to have this, and we have lost them because of A, B, C, D, and we need you as a citizen. Wewe kama mwananchi, we need your support. And your support is by working closely with the government, either TANAPA, Wildlife Division, tour operators, so we need your support. What I learned in Uganda is the same thing, and I remember I would go for local FM stations, and I would do live interviews, and people are like, why don't you spend another 2 days here? Would you want to come and maybe you tell us one-to-one on what we can do? Right. So I was packaging information suited by the communities in that locality. I would not have talked about Kenya, but I was talking about that region.
So that it was more relevant to those
them,
people,
so
of
that
course.
they can be able to identify themselves with the issues, opportunities that are there within that area. So that means when I'm working, I'm also studying. I'm also doing more research, and I'm also speaking with the authority of the country because I don't want to bring different gospel on what they have been doing, particularly issues to do with facts, issues to do with the population numbers. Like in Uganda, I would go to areas where they have about 10 elephants in the whole park, and we had to agree with the authority, this is the number. And then the policies of a country, because I remember in Lake Jipe in Tanzania, they wanted to hear, how are you Kenyans managing human-wildlife conflict? Here we are talking of compensation. There they talk of kivuta jasho, something that is there in books, but it is not there. So they are like, why don't you push? They give me a lot of work to do, to meet President Magufuli, to tell him that the Tanzanians need to borrow the concept of Kenya.
Right, well, tell me more about the response that you got from, well, the Kenyans, the Ugandans and Tanzanians. When you spoke to them, were people fascinated? Were they shocked? Were they upset to hear that actually we don't have very many elephants as we used to in the past? Or were some people just indifferent, thinking this is just a man who's, you know, wasting his time talking about elephants?
Yeah, one thing I have learned is that anytime I would begin talking, people are very keen. And I have learned this even back home here. When I begin speaking the facts from 1979, people have like, what? This is what we have. We thought we have so many elephants. And then talking about what is causing the reduction of our numbers of elephants, you now see people actually like you are doing, they nod their heads. For sure, I am involved in this. Because many people thought that we have so many elephants. I remember asking one member of parliament, opposition in Bukoba, and he took it and he said, we have a parliamentary meeting in Dodoma. I now have a message to take it to the parliamentarian. So to me, I'm like, and I would say this in Swahili, it's the new beginning of giving citizen, what I would call citizen leadership. People have information, and then you choose to act on it. You either react or you act.
Well, so overall, I mean, do you strongly feel that this particular walk did make an impact? Did you achieve what you intended to achieve?
I feel that I achieved. In the beginning, I was looking at how can the East African come together, make one voice. In the small way of it, we've done that. This is an individual initiative. But the support we got from the government, getting opportunity to address meetings with media, TVs, and also even being on the news, and also the government involving in making some statements. So when we came back home here, I was very happy that one, for the first time, we have worked in Tanzania. Second, we have Tanzanians working with us. Ivory belongs to Elephant Campaign. It's not in Kenya, it's in Tanzania. And they are promising me, because I'm planning a big walk now, to walk from Dar es Salaam to Botswana. And they wanted to be part of that. That means they have also now tried to identify people who can work with us in Malawi, Zambia, and other countries. Uganda, they have now asked me to go and walk from Kampala to Murchison and Kidepo.
And what impact are these walks having across East Africa?
One of them is the knowledge, the information, particularly the information. And out of the 100 people that I talked to, maybe 100%, maybe about 20% thought that everything was okay. But I listened even to the regional commissioners, the level of a county commissioner, the prime ministers, you know, people saying, we don't know. Why are we left behind? So the same case I saw in Uganda.
And where do you think the gap is? Why don't people know who's failing who? Is it the government? Is it the education system? Is it the media? Where are the loopholes?
I would say it's only after the new constitution here, we were allowed to begin quoting figures here. The people who have information don't want to release the information. Tanzania is the same thing. Wildlife is managed by TANAPA, Wildlife Division, and other institutions. When we have so many people, people don't know who to believe. Yeah. There should be one way of disseminating this information. So the other thing, even in Uganda, the priorities for conservation in these three countries, they don't give first priority to conservation at all. That's why you've seen any manners of development, whether it's roads or whatever, are taken to the park. So first thing, priorities. You go to Uganda, there are people who are living in the park inside, because then they think wildlife and tree, the way you see tree growing is the same thing wildlife reproduce.
Right.
But that is very wrong. The other thing is, you find like the way we have KWS here, there is an attitude that what I would call the perpetual attitude or Sunday school teaching, that the wildlife belongs to the government. I don't care, even if I see a Muguzi here, this is the government. So there is no ownership of the resources we have. Then, but this is being affected by the foreigners, the dominance of foreigners. There is no time we have seen Africans taking lead in conservation.
You're focusing, of course, on empowering and informing East Africans about the importance of elephants, but you've also walked across 9 states in the United States of America back in 2013. Why did you choose to walk in America of all places, and what impact did that have briefly?
You know, I was testing these hypotheses that these people, they have all the information and they have been ahead of us in many things. Yeah. I remember my second day in for river in the Massachusetts. I was asked, why are you walking in here? You should walk in Zimbabwe. That's where they have people killing elephants. Yeah. I had knew this, that America are recorded by the Elephant Trade Information System as the second leading consumer on ivory. And I was using this, that American, you should care. One, you all comes to Africa for safaris to see elephants. Secondly, I learned that kids, they learn letter E as elephants. Yeah. You need to know you are making us in Africa to kill elephants because you are enjoying the product. It was a big war, telling them that you people, you are buying ivory. When I reached New York, I was featured by Good Morning America, and given times I talked about that. By the time we were reaching Washington, D.C., the America announced to destroy 6 tons of ivory in my presence in Denver. Wow. So I learned something, that even there, the ignorance is the same. 3,200
kilometers done. What next for you, Jim?
As I always say, I will not stop walking. I'll stop walking when everyone knows that ivory belongs to elephants. I want to check elephants in Mount Kenya, whether they are okay. I'm hearing there is a lot of grazing, so I'm doing a walk just alone. Okay. And I will have 8 days to walk over Mount Kenya. But February, I'll be walking from Meru to Marsabit. It will be about 300. That's a short walk, 300 kilometers.
Short walk.
Yeah. Before going to Uganda, 2018, we'll have a major walk. We'll have settled with the elections.
And can anybody join you if they want to? Anyone who's watching, if they think, hey, I want to be like Jim, I want to join Jim?
I never walked alone. Okay. I had people even who are going to market, but they have heard about us, they'll join. We have t-shirts. So you can join us. First of all, I always say this, because I want to equip you with information. First of all, be informed before join the walk.
Okay. And Jim, if you had one message to the president who is in charge of the Kenyan government, what would it be? Because you have been speaking to the common wananchi across the various countries, but what would you tell the president?
I know Her Excellency the First Lady is so passionate, and the president is so passionate. What actually inspired me was his statement in 2013 that Kenya will be the light of Africa when it comes to conservation, and for sure, he destroyed 105 tons of ivory. I would request him, with all due humility, that we need to, if we consider conservation in this country, we have to consider protecting the areas where we have wildlife. The standard gauge railway that is coming all the way, yes, we need the development, infrastructure, but must they pass through the park? The resilience of environment to take place may take longer. Secondly, let us support KWS. Thirdly, the people who are supporting conservation, I think at some point we need to be heard. Some of us, we are sacrificing so much. I am selling t-shirts and these wristbands to support conservation in this country. I believe I cannot be walking for all these 3,200 kilometers if I was so normal, in the sense, I am passing a message, yes, can we be heard? I think we need to be heard in the sense we have a message that we are trying to pass. And all of us, we love wildlife, we love KWS, and we respect them. Yes, but we need to support them.
And it is, of course, a strong message that needs to be heard, that our environment, our wildlife needs to be protected. Jim, thank you so much for joining us on NTV Wild Talk. It's been a pleasure. Congratulations once more, and all the very best for the next upcoming walks.
Thank you very much.
All right, with me, Jim Nyamu, the man that walked across East Africa, 3,200 kilometers, all for elephants. It is a pretty fascinating story. And now it's the part that you've all been waiting for, our wild guess question. We ask, what triggered Jim Nyamu to raise awareness about the plight of elephants? What triggered Jim Nyamu to raise awareness about the plight of elephants? To participate, just like the NTV Wild Facebook page. Our Wild Guess prizes just got better. The first person to answer correctly wins complimentary entry for 2 people to the David Sheldrick Wildlife Trust. This means you'll be able to see the adorable baby orphaned elephants during the 1-hour public viewing. And the winner now also gets free entry for 4 people and a vehicle to any national park of their choice, courtesy of the Kenya Wildlife Service. And the bottle of wine, courtesy of Wines of the World, plus the gift hamper, courtesy of Wildlife Direct, is still up for grabs. Terms and conditions apply. Last week's lucky winner was Thomas Mwanga Omweri. Here are some of the photos that you sent in on our Wild Pick segment, demonstrating your love for nature. Abraham Jenga was on a road somewhere in East Africa. He was walking in the rain with Jim Nyamu on his Ivory Belongs to Elephants East Africa walk. Abraham says, "I have a passion for wildlife and I believe the future of wildlife is in our hands." This is Jackson in the middle of the photo with Patrick and Ezra. They were at the Old Joggy Conservancy, posing with a huge elephant in the background. Jackson says they were there for a lecture about wildlife conservation during their field training with the Kenya Wildlife Service Training Institute. And then at the Gedi Ruins Snake Park, this is Patrick Mutua being very brave, holding a snake around his arm. But Patrick says that not all snakes are poisonous, and it was a great experience. Kenya is great with conserved nature. At Mamba Village in Mombasa, this is a snap of Absalom Soli. She had gone to see some crocodiles with her younger one, and they were also looking for some butterflies. She says Mamba Village is a great place for lovers of the wild and encourages everyone to visit. And then this is Frank Momanyi at the Thompson Falls in Laikipia. Frank was visiting the falls after a rugby game and says that he loves nature and will never miss to stop by any nature stop. Now, if you want your photo showcased on our Wild Pick segment, just like our NTV Wild Facebook page and send a photo that shows you celebrating nature via private message. Include your full name, tell us where the photo was taken, what you were doing and why. And now, here's what's coming up on the NTV Wild documentary series on Saturday night.
Amber is a very experienced mother, quite probably over 10 years old, and there isn't much that surprises her.
Amber's cubs are now over 17 months old, and yet they're still with their mother, but there have been occasions recently when Amber has appeared less patient with family life.
The cubs seem to sense their mother's wariness. When one of the lionesses spots some hyenas, she's in no mood to tolerate them this close to the cubs. Lions aren't known for their stamina. Hyenas are. Despite the lioness's persistence, the hyenas have the endurance to run and run and run.
Jim Nyamu is one man who is walking the talk. He is informing communities and changing perceptions about elephants one step at a time. And Jim says that he won't stop walking until everyone understands that ivory belongs to elephants. That's it on NTV Wild Talk with me, Smriti Vidyarthi. Thanks very much for watching. See you again Tuesday, 10 p.m.
Thank you so much.
126 days of walking.
You can hear me? Good.
You can
Okay.
hear me? So he has informed and changed perception. No, he's... What?
The insects.
Are they showing?
So you are fighting them? I love the sceneries. You know, that's where we have like breeding site for elephant in Madhi region.
NTV Wild Talk with me, Smriti Vidyathi. Sorry, Ken, can I ask you to go on that side? You know, what next? Yeah?
NTV Wild Talk in partnership with the Kenya Wildlife Service and Wildlife Direct.